Hey, welcome to the Children's Author Show. Today is a solo episode, and it's just you and me. That's right, no guests, no interviews, just real talk about something super important for every aspiring and working children's author to consider. Today's topic, the dangers of self-publishing. Welcome to the Children's Author Show. If you ever dreamed of writing a book that inspires young minds, builds a lasting brand, and even creates a sustainable career, then you're in the right place. From crafting unforgettable stories, to marketing your books, to even monetizing your brand, we'll cover everything that you need to succeed as a children's author. So grab your notebook, fuel that creativity, and let's make your author dreams a reality. This is the Children's Author Show. Welcome back to the Children's Author Show. My name is Andy Coates. I'm an award-winning children's author, book coach, and your host of the Children's Author Show, where we dive deep into the world of children's publishing, meet aspiring authors, and share insights that help you grow in your writing journey. And today, it's just you and me. That's right, no guest. And I hope that I didn't scare you away with the title, The Dangers of Self-Publishing. And how fitting that this week I'm talking about the dangers of self-publishing, and we actually have a crazy storm happening outside. And hopefully my microphone doesn't pick up all of the thunder and the crazy rain and wind happening around me right now. But I do find it very fitting that we're talking about the dangers of self-publishing today. Now, let me be clear right up front. This episode is not anti-self-publishing. In fact, I've self-published a lot of books. In fact, at this time of recording, I have self-published every one of my books. Although I do have a few projects in the works for traditional publishing, I have self-published every one of my books. And not only do I self-publish, I actually help others self-publish as well. I believe in it. And when done right, it can be a powerful tool to get you and your book out there, to grow your brand, and to make a real impact. But there are some dangers that we need to look at and think about and consider. And if you don't know what they are, you can end up wasting a whole lot of time, a whole lot of money, and a bunch of your momentum as you're trying to build your brand as an author. So today, I want to walk you through the biggest pitfalls that I see that most authors fall into and how you can avoid them like a pro. So today, let's start with this. Let's start off by asking this question. Why do so many authors choose to self-publish? Think about it. Why did you decide to self-publish? How did you come to that decision to make the choice to say, I'm going to self-publish my book? Well, on the surface, it sounds easy, at least easier than the traditional route. There's no gatekeeping. You don't have to wait months or even years for an agent or publisher to say yes to your project. And you can take control. You can upload your book, you can hit publish, and boom, all of a sudden, you're an author. And that sounds amazing, right? But here's the problem. Actually, in fact, if you're watching this video, you probably already have discovered the problem, or maybe you're doing a little research to understand where the challenges might be. But the reality is there is a problem when it comes to choosing to self-publish. You see, self-publishing, although it gives you the freedom, it doesn't give you direction. You get to drive the car, but you also have to build it. You have to fuel it. You have to insure it. You have to learn to fix the engine if it breaks down. You got to take care of all the repairs. And if you don't know what you're doing, self-publishing can leave you frustrated, broke, and wondering why nobody is buying your book. And that's why I want to help you avoid some of what I consider to be the biggest landmines that I believe are out there for authors choosing to self-publish. So let's jump in. Danger number one. Danger number one. And it's kind of a two-part danger. Danger number one is no support and no accountability. I put these together because I believe they work hand in hand, that when we don't have a community or an authority that's helping to drive the project, then there's not the support system and there's not the accountability. Therefore, it's easy for our project to stall out. Because first and foremost, when you choose to self-publish, You're basically on your own. When you self-publish, there's no editor assigned to you. There's no marketing team. There's no project manager keeping you on track. There's no art director working with an illustrator or a book designer to make sure your book looks good compared to the industry and the market. It's all you. And what that means is that you're responsible for the quality of your book. You're responsible for the timeline. You're responsible for the marketing strategy. And most importantly, you're responsible for making sure that the book doesn't just sit on your desktop collecting digital dust. Now, don't get me wrong. You can build this support system, this community. You can hire editors, you can hire designers, you can hire illustrators, you can hire marketing help, but it's on you to do it. There's no built-in team. And here's where a lot of people actually fall off. It's not just in that piece, it's in the accountability piece as well. There's no accountability. No one is saying, "Hey, this isn't ready. Hey, your deadline's approaching. Hey, you missed the deadline. Hey, this was supposed to be to me on Friday." Nobody's telling you that. No one's pushing you to go deeper into revisions. No one helping you make the tough decisions about characters, about structure, about plot or plot holes, or any of those other developmental issues that your book might have. Nobody's pushing you to go deeper into those revisions to make it the best it can possibly be, unless you're hiring someone to do so, which means a lot of books end up getting rushed. They're quickly uh, go from start to finish in just a short amount of time, and the book isn't the best that it can be. Or the reality is, a lot of these books, because there's no accountability, they never get finished. Or what happens is they do get finished and then they launch without a plan. And immediately those books end up stalling out because they went so fast. Or maybe it did take some time, but they got to the end of the actual writing journey and then they hit publish and it stalls out because there wasn't a plan post launch. So before you self publish, ask yourself some questions. Who's editing this book? Who's designing my cover? Who's doing my illustrations? Who's helping me market, or how am I going to market this book? What's my timeline going to be, and how am I going to make sure that I'm staying on track to make sure I'm meeting my own personal deadlines? What's my schedule look like? How am I going to devote the time I need to both write and then make sure that the illustrations are done, to make sure that the marketing is done, to make sure I'm uploading on time? Who's going to make sure that timeline is staying on track? Is it going to be you? Are you going to pay someone to help you? And here's the reality is, I believe all these things are very, very important. But if you try to do every one of these yourself, more than likely your book's still not going to be the best that it possibly can be, even if you're very efficient with making sure you're checking off the timelines. Because sometimes we need other eyes looking at our project. But the reality is, for both of these things, all this, if you don't build the support system and you don't build the accountability, you'll feel the weight of doing it alone. And I don't want you to feel like you're in this by yourself. So we have to build that support system and build that accountability, because without the support, we want to quit. Without the accountability, oftentimes there's not a lot of follow through. So we need to build that around us to make sure that we get our project done and it's the best that it can possibly be. That's danger number one. Danger number two is vanity and hybrid publishers. This one right here is the one that I am probably the most passionate about. So let's talk about the sharks in the water, if you will, because they're real and they are aggressive. I'm talking about these vanity presses and hybrid publishers. First, what is a vanity publisher or vanity press? Maybe you've heard this term floating around as a new or young author in the journey. Well, a vanity publisher or vanity press is a company that they will publish your book, but only after you pay them thousands of dollars most of the time up front. Or they may give you a payment schedule to try to avoid saying they're not one of these vanity, but they're going to charge you to publish your book for you. They'll tell you that they're a publishing house. They'll say things like, we accepted your manuscript, or we're so impressed with your story, or, we'll get you into the major stores like Barnes and Noble, Target, or Walmart. And it all sounds amazing until you realize that they're not investing in you. Instead, what they're doing is they're charging you. They make their money off of you, not off of the sale of your books. Where a traditional publisher, they're going to invest in you, and they're actually going to pay you, and you're not paying them. And they're going to make money off of your book sales, not off of you. And usually what these vanity publishers end up doing is they do a pretty poor job. They outsource the editing to some cheap editing source. They cover, or like the covers that they design are pretty mediocre at best. It's usually something done pretty quickly, and it probably looks very similar to other books within the genre, which they have quote unquote published. They print your book and then they just simply really walk away because they make money on you up until the point they hit publish and they get their final installment check from you, or that's just when their job is done. They may promise some marketing stuff, but it's usually pretty thin, pretty weak stuff. But they essentially make money by just getting you to the point of publishing. After you have your book is out there, they don't make any money off of you anymore. So there's very little incentive for them to actually see your book succeed. They don't really care if your book succeeds because they make their money off just making sure that it's published. And they'll leave you with ultimately boxes of books that are sitting in your garage, or worse, you don't even own your files when the deal is actually done. In fact, many of these vanity publishers, what they do is they maintain a lot of control. They have the files, they have everything. So you're kind of locked into staying in relationship with them. And if you want anything from them, you're going to pay for it, because anything after they hit publish, they're not making money on unless they're going to charge you for it. Now, so that's the vanity. What about the hybrid publishers? What are they? Well, a hybrid publisher, it's a little trickier because they position themselves as if they are like the best of both worlds, that they're somewhere between the traditional and the self-publishing, that they're right here, hybrid, and they're going to help you with the strength of the traditional publishing industry, but the control of self-publishing. And they say things like, we're a boutique publisher, or we partner with authors, or we split the cost of publishing. Here's the problem, is that sometimes these hybrid publishers, they are actually legit. There are some real hybrid publishing companies out there. There are a few of these ethical hybrid publishers that are out there that are truly collaborating, sharing royalties, and bringing real value to authors. But here's the problem. Most of these hybrid publishers are simply just scams. They're rebranded vanity presses that have made themselves appear to be a traditional publishing house, and they sound real official. They have a fancy website. They call themselves a publishing house. They have testimonials and logos and words that trick you into thinking, oh, this is something very special. But in reality, they're simply just a person, or maybe a very, very small team that's managing your self-publishing journey at a massive premium. They're doing everything that you could do yourself, and they're charging you a whole lot of money to do it. Now, like I said, there are some real ones out there. And if you are interested in publishing, but you don't want to take on the full process and have to manage it all yourself, but you want to have the control and you want someone to do it for you, and you want to be quick to publishing, you don't want to wait on a publisher to say yes, you don't mind paying the massive premiums to have somebody do it for you, then find one of these reputable companies and have them publish the book for you. The problem is that most of these end up being just a person from anywhere around the world. They could be in a third world country and they barely have a Wi-Fi signal, but they're claiming to be a publishing house. So it can be very dangerous. And oftentimes authors get scammed because they pay the money up front and then nothing happens. Because here's what they're doing. Ultimately, even some of these ones that are semi-legit, what they're doing is they're hiring the same freelancers that you could hire directly yourself. They're uploading your book to KDP or Ingram Spark, which you can do yourself. Maybe they're running a few Amazon ads for you, which you can learn to do yourself. But what they're doing is they're charging you $5, $10, $15,000 or even more. I've heard of stories of people spending $30, $40, $50,000 with these hybrid publishers to get their book out there because of a promise to be the next bestseller. And they're charging all this for the privilege of them publishing, quote unquote, your book. They'll even lock you into these exclusive contracts, and they're going to take a cut of your royalties, and they're going to make it very difficult for you to walk away if you are unhappy with their services. And most of the time, most authors I've worked with who've signed up with these companies, they end up being very happy with the services. They want to walk away, but they're stuck because these hybrid publishing companies, they have the control. They're locked into a contract. So let me give you kind of the real talk. If someone is asking you to pay them thousands of dollars to quote unquote publish your book and they keep your rights and your royalties, then I want to give you one word piece of advice. Run. And as I'm saying that, I have a big clap of thunder that happened. I hope you could hear it in the background. You need to run. Don't sign up. Instead, what you need to do is hire your own editor, work with your own cover designer, hire an illustrator. There are great reputable illustrators who are out there who are freelancing. And there's a whole nother conversation about that, but check out some of my videos about illustrators, and I can connect you with great resources on where to find some good vetted illustrators who are out there. Learn how to format a book or hire someone who can format it for you. But if you do it yourself, you need to make sure that it looks good and matches industry standards. But hire someone to do it. There's plenty of YouTube videos out there that if you want to learn the process of formatting, it's one of the easier things to do inside of self-publishing. So if you're hiring someone to edit and hiring someone to do a cover design and hiring someone for illustrations, learn to format. It's a fairly easy process. And with some great couple of different softwares, you can do it yourself and do it well. But it takes a little bit of practice. And with a little practice, you can do great. You can upload the documents yourself. And when you do that, you own your book 100%. Nobody's holding control over you. And you'll spend far less money and have far more control. And you'll actually understand how the process works so that nobody in the future is going to have control over your self-publishing journey. You got into this more than likely so that you could self-publish, so that yourself has the control. So you don't want somebody else having the control over your journey. So how do you spot these scams? How do you spot it? Tell the difference between what's reputable and what's not? Well, I can just tell you most of these are not reputable. So I would say you need to always be careful. And unless you have someone who you trust personally who would refer you to a company that you've seen the high quality of their book, I would say that you need to run. So how do you spot these scams? Well, they usually contact you first, whether it's through email or through social media. They're promoting their services of how you can utilize them to publish your book, to get it out there to the world. And oftentimes on social media, you'll see these people pop up in different social media groups, Facebook in particular, and a lot of these author groups. What'll happen is they're going to pop up and they're going to claim to be a publisher. And they'll usually say things like, "Hey, authors, it's Monday, show us your cover." And then as soon as you show your cover, they're going to pop up, "Hey, have you ever thought about this?" Or they're going to say, "Who's looking to publish a book? I'm here to help. I'm a professional." And they're going to make these claims. And then you're going to click on their profile and they're going to have 17 friends and they're following a lot of people, but they don't have a lot of people following them, or their profile was created a year ago because they've just popped up because they've been deleted maybe multiple times from scams before, and they're usually going to try to reach out to you and market their services to you. They use phrases like, "We've selected your book for publication," and They're going to guarantee sales and distribution. And sometimes some of these will guarantee best selling. And oftentimes what that means is they're going to have, well, back this up. They're going to have you pay the money to get books be ordered so that you make a best selling list. They're going to require you to have upfront payment before any deliverables are actually sent to you. They're going to have contracts that are pretty vague, or if they're not just vague, they're going to be one-sided to them versus to you as the author. They're going to push for you to make quick, fast decisions and say, hey, I've got to have a decision made because we have other people we're working with. And if you don't decide now, we're just going to move on. And it's going to put you in this feeling like you have to decide something quickly. It's very pushy. And oftentimes if they feel like you're resisting, they're gonna get very they're gonna kind of start to attack a little bit and get aggressive. And if you feel any of that, you just need to walk away. You need to run away when you feel that. Because remember this, a real publisher, they're going to invest in you. They're going to invest in you. And if you're the one who's writing the checks, guess what? You're the publisher. It's not them. Because a publisher writes the checks. If you're traditionally published, they're the ones they're writing the checks to Illustrator. They're the ones writing the checks to have the books printed, not you. They're the publisher. So if you're writing the checks, that makes you the publisher, not them. These companies, they serve as an in-between. They're essentially capitalizing on the opportunity of your lack of knowledge or your desperation to make it happen. And so I want to encourage you, do your homework. And even when you do your homework, you still need to be careful, because I know a lot of people who have told me over the years. In fact, I've worked with a couple of authors recently who they're like, man, they sounded so convincing. You went through the whole process and they seemed like a very reputable company. And they took me for a lot of money, or they scammed me, or they end up getting into my social medias. Now I had to create new social media profiles because they've got all my passwords. So you got to be very, very, very careful when you try to work with these quote unquote hybrid or vanity presses who call themselves publishers. Do not trust them, especially if they're reaching out to you. Now, if you want to take that chance, I encourage you to look for some of the larger ones who are out there. Some of these ones who may be connected even to some of the publishers, but they're kind of an arm or extension. But even so, I've heard of these. I've heard of, especially in some other countries, where they'll name their company Amazon Self-Publishing or Penguin Self-Publishing, and they'll make their logo look just like Penguin Random House. And it's very dangerous. So you want to make sure that these are truly reputable companies before you decide to send them any bit of money, because it's usually 99% of the time these are scams. All right, here we go. Danger number 3. The danger here is that your book ultimately, it ends up just sitting on a shelf, whether that's digitally or because if not a shelf, it may sit in boxes in your garage. That's one of the largest dangers that most authors face when it comes to self-publishing. This is a danger that really it hits close to home for a lot of first-time authors. You put a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of effort, maybe even a lot of money into your book. And usually our first book, they're very meaningful to us, whether it's a passion project or just something that's very meaningful that we've made this brave decision to put our work before the world. You upload it to Amazon, you hit publish, and then crickets. No sales, no reviews, no readers. Just a book that sits on a virtual shelf collecting dust, or sitting in a garage collecting dust. So why does this happen? It happens because you didn't have a good launch plan. It happens because you didn't have an audience. It happens because you didn't have a marketing strategy in place before you published. Publishing a book, it doesn't magically make people care. Oftentimes in your first book, you might actually have a big influx of sales because your friends and family come alongside you and they want to support you, especially with that first book. But the more books you end up publishing, the less you're going to pick up the sales from those friends and family. So you ultimately look and you're like, man, just because I published this, it seems like no one cares that this is published. Well, here's the reality. They don't. People don't just magically all of a sudden care that you have a book out there. You have to build the momentum. You have to build the channels to which your book is going to get out there to the world. So you need to ask yourself some questions. Who is this book for? Where are they hanging out? And is it online? Is it in person somewhere? It doesn't matter. Where are they? Where is my audience? How can I connect that audience with my book? How can I connect with that audience maybe even before I launch the book? What type of partnerships can I form, whether with schools or libraries or local events or festivals? What are some of those partnerships that I can develop right now so that whenever I launch the book out there, there is an audience who cares that my book is out there? What's my post-launch strategy going to be? And I want to encourage you, if your post-launch strategy is to wait and see what happens and what the book does, it's not going to work. You're not going to pick up sales. You need to have a strategy in place that's going to be proactive, because the reality is the work begins once you hit publish. Actually, the actual launching of your book and getting it out there to the world, that begins before you hit publish. And I'm not even talking about the writing process or the formatting. That's a whole different step. That's the preparation to your book getting out there to the world. But you need to have a plan in place from that's post launch, a strategy that's going to help your book best succeed. Publishing, hitting publish on that, I click on Amazon Ingram Spark and you publishing it, that's not the end of it, of the journey. That's just the beginning. And if you don't treat it like a launch pad versus a landing pad, that it's a launch pad, your book will go absolutely nowhere. Watch this. No matter how good it is, you may have written an incredible story. It might have dynamic characters, incredible plot twist, great, inspiring world building that just captures the hearts of your reader. But if you haven't done the work to launch your book out there, it's going to go nowhere, no matter how great it really is. So what do we do about it? What do we do about this? We see these dangers, we see these problems, and I don't want to just be doom and gloom, although outside the storm around me is still firing off. You've probably heard some of the thunder in the background. No matter how doom and gloom it might feel, there are solutions that are going to help us get past these dangers. So we've covered these dangers at pretty lengthy conversation already today. We've spent a lot of time together discussing the dangers. So now let's talk about how to get to the other side of this. I don't want to just leave you overwhelmed by this. So let's talk about how to move forward in a very smart way. So here's how you self-publish without getting yourself burned or falling into these dangerous traps, these dangerous snares that are just out there. So the first thing I would say to you is you need to do your own homework. Don't just trust everything that you've heard or think that might be true. Don't just trust what somebody comes to you and says if they're trying to sell you a product or a service. Do your homework. Learn the self-publishing process. You need to know what platforms are out there, not just Amazon, but places like Ingram Spark and other distributions that are out there, Draft to Digital, and other ones who are out that could potentially help you in your publishing journey. How can you get into the big box stores without having to pay these companies? What does that look like? Did you know that through Ingram Spark that can actually just happen, that you're not having to? So you need to learn about the platforms, not just what they are, but how they function, how they work. So learn the process so that in case you do want to pay someone to do the different steps in the process, you're equipped with the knowledge by doing your homework. Understand royalties, understand the distribution process, understand things like ISBNs and how you need to own your own ISBNs. Do not, hey, I'm going to give you a piece of advice here. Here's a little tip. Do not pay a company and have them have the ISBN numbers of their own. You need to own them. So you go to Bowker, you purchase your own ISBNs for your book, and you give them the ISBN number if they're publishing. If you are going to use someone to publish your book, you need to own the ISBN, not them. I would say this even goes for Amazon. It's cheap, it's free on Amazon. You don't have to purchase an ISBN. They will host the ISBN for you, but you can't publish that book anywhere else. So they maintain the control of your book. And if you want to publish it with anyone else, you've got to unpublish it through Amazon and get a new ISBN number and everything. So just purchase the ISBN number yourself. You can still upload it through KDP and Amazon. You can still upload a book with your own ISBN. You don't have to utilize their service. It's quote unquote free, but they maintain independent control, isolated control of your book if you use their ISBN and only is sold through them. They offer it for free, not for your benefit, but for theirs. So you need to purchase your own ISBNs. Learn about that stuff. Do your homework. Number 2 in this is that you need to build a team. You need to build a team. And this may start with just you and one other person that's on your team. But you need to hire some freelancers, some freelance professionals who they do this kind of stuff every day. No matter how good you think you are at editing your own book, you need to hire an editor. And I don't mean an editor who's like, I'm a grammar Nazi. That's great, but you need to hire an editor who actually does this professionally. Because just because somebody's really good at grammar doesn't mean they fully understand the ins and outs of actually doing editing. So you need to hire a freelance editor, no matter who you are. Every one of you who are listening to this, if you are self-publishing, you need to hire an editor. Period. That's all of us. Now, you can get them pretty affordable, especially if it's a picture book. They're usually pretty cheap. Okay, they usually charge per word. Chapter books, fairly inexpensive. Now, as you start to get into middle grade novels and things like that, the price definitely starts to go up because it's more word count. But you need to hire someone to do editing for you, and that might mean doing not just line editing, but also some developmental editing for you as well to give you feedback on the structure, plot, characters, things like that. You need to hire an editor. But you also probably ought to consider, if you're not great with graphic design or formatting or illustrations, you might need to hire freelance professionals who are formatters, designers, illustrators. Hire professionals. Don't just say, hey, let me go get a person who they like to draw. Will you do a book for me? Because they're not going to understand what actually illustrating. It's not just artist. There is an art to illustrating for a book that's different than just having a talent to draw a picture or create a character. They have to be storytellers themselves. In fact, the beauty of illustrations is that illustrations bring your story to life. And if a person's really good at drawing, but they can't bring your story to life, it doesn't do you much good to just have a picture, no matter how good a quality it might be. So hire professionals to do this every day. And if you need help with that, reach out to us. We'd love to help you. I have a list of great editors, designers, formatters, cover design, illustrators, everything you might need from those different freelance professionals. Feel free to reach out or check out some of our resources on our YouTube channel or our podcast platforms, where we talk and have discussions with people who are in the industry that are editors, designers, illustrators, formatters, all that stuff. So check out our resources. And if we don't have a video posted when you're watching this yet, then feel free to reach out, and we'd love to connect you with someone who can help you in your journey. You need to build a team. You need to have a team of freelance people who can help you as you grow. You don't need a big company. You don't need some hybrid publisher or vanity press. You just need the right people that are beside you. They're going to help make this become a reality. Next thing is you need to create a budget. You don't need to spend $15,000-$20,000 on this book to get it published. In fact, to get it published, the biggest chunk you should end up spending just getting to the publishing point will be illustrations. That should be the largest purchase that you make in hiring a freelance person. It should be your illustrator. And so if you can get that for $2,500, $3,000 for your picture book, that's a fantastic price. You should that should be your largest expense when it comes to the public, the pre-launching phase, getting to the publishing where you hit publish. That should be your largest ticket. If you're going to spend $10,000 to $15,000 to pay a hybrid publisher who's going to then essentially just walk away once they hit publish, maybe run a couple of ads for you, but then they're done, you've thrown a whole lot of money away, because you could have spent probably $4,000 to have high quality illustrations, a great cover, an incredible editor who's gone through and made it great for you and helped with some developmental stuff, and you have a solid book that's hitting the market. And the difference, say they were going to charge you $10,000 and you spent $4,000 on all that, you can now spend that $6,000 on some great strategies to get your book out there, from having great resources to get out into festivals and to school visits, paying for some marketing campaigns, maybe getting into some different magazines or articles or things that are promoting your book, networking with some organizations that may match some of the messages that are in your book, whatever it might be. There's tons of resources out there depending on your specific book and genre and stuff. But the thing is, you're going to have a lot of those dollars available to customize it to your book, where all they're going to do is they're going to run some ads, maybe, for you. And that's something you could just do yourself. So save yourself the premium prices and don't do it. So create a budget, figure out what it's going to be. And it let me help you out here. It won't be zero. You're going to spend in the thousands, not in the hundreds. So if you have $800 to create a book, it's possible. Yes, you can get a book on Amazon for $800. Realistically, probably cheaper than that. But it's not going to be high quality. You're probably going to have to use some kind of artificial intelligence to create a book that no one cover and illustrations that nobody really wants to purchase. And you're probably not going to be able to get it out there very much for people to even know that you created the book. And when they do see it, they're not going to purchase it. So it's going to sit there and not make you any income. And if this is a passion project for you, don't waste the money. Save up. Don't spend $800 to sell yourself short. Save up the money. Create a budget. And if you don't have the money that's needed for that budget, I'm going to tell you $4,000 to $5,000 is a good range. If you're creating a book, that's a good place for you to start. When you got to hire an illustrator and a formatter and all that kind of editor, $4,000 to $5,000. So if that's your budget, you don't have it, save up. Get a couple of side jobs. Go mow a couple of lawns. Sell some stuff that you've been just collecting around the house. Have a big yard sale. That may get you several $100 to several $1,000s. Go do some things to save up some money so that you can have a great product to put out there. You can produce a professional book for a lot less than you think if you hire smart and you plan well. So hire some great people around you. Don't be paying these companies to do it for you. Hire freelance professionals yourself. And then you own the control and you're managing the process. The next thing, retain your own rights. You need to own your files. You need to control the royalties. You need to keep the creative control. You need to own the ISBNs. Do not give that stuff away unless you're being traditionally published, where you have an agent and an agent takes you to a traditional publishing house and they're giving you an upfront advance against royalties. You need to maintain the control. If you're self-publishing, you need to retain all those rights and you need to own it all. Do not give it away. The next thing is you need to be able to market this thing like a pro. Start building your platform. Before you even publish, start building your platform. Learn how to use email, social media, school visits, which are one of my favorite things, festivals, events, and so many more other things out there that we could spend a whole video talking about. But you need to capitalize on these different strategies and events to grow your reach. You need to expand the places and platforms and opportunities for your book to get distributed out there. Just running ads won't be enough. So you need to figure out, what are some marketing things that I can do? How can I get into schools and into libraries and to become that regional professional that I like to talk about? You need to master your region. Get to know the areas where your audience is buying books. And no, it may not make you a New York Times bestseller overnight, but you build a large enough platform. By the time you get 3 or 4 or 5 books into this, you might see a lot of great sales, and it may make it a whole lot easier to pitch to one of those traditional publishing houses when you have a pretty good platform. So start marketing like a pro. Build your platforms so that you can have that distribution channel to get your book out to once you do hit launch. And ultimately, as I've mentioned so many times on this episode, you need to avoid those vanity and hybrid traps. If someone's selling you a dream with a big price tag, run away. Run away. Invest that money directly into your book, not into someone else's profit off of your project. So run. Don't let them try to sell you the dream and attach a big price tag to it. Avoid those vanity traps and those hybrid publishing traps. Well, all right, friends, if you're still with me, thank you for hanging out today. Thank you for hanging in there with me as we've talked about these dangers in self-publishing. And it's not meant to be negative. This is hopefully a great resource for you to avoid some of these traps that are out there. And I know it's a pretty heavy topic, but it's so, so important. Self-publishing can be incredible. I love it. But only if you do it with clarity, confidence, and some caution as well. So don't fall for the scams. Don't publish in isolation. Don't rush the process. Build you a team. Get educated. Do your homework. Ask for help. And remember, you don't have to figure this all out alone. Well, if this episode has helped you, would you please do me a favor? Share it with a fellow author. Post it in a writer group. Send it out to someone who maybe they're considering self-publishing a children's book. Let us be a great resource to them. Let's help each other out to not get stuck in these traps. I've talked to too many authors who have lost a whole lot of money in self-publishing because they've been caught in these little snares. So don't get caught by all these little traps that are out there that can cause authors to not succeed in their journey. And if you've ever had a rough experience with maybe one of these hybrid or vanity publishers, I'd love to hear your story. Reach out to me on social media, drop me a message. I'd love to hear your story and maybe offer some help in your journey in moving forward. So I'd love to hear your story. I'm probably going to look to do an episode where we kind of share some of our horror stories, if you will, in the self-publishing journey. A little round table with some stories. So I'd love to hear your story, and you may get asked to join us on one of those episodes as we do a roundtable about it. So please reach out to us on social media. Well, thanks again for joining me on the Children's Authors Show. I want to encourage you to go check out some of our old podcasts that we do have out there. And maybe if you haven't seen this, we actually have a companion video format for this that happens if you aren't watching us and you're just listening, or if you're watching and you don't realize we do have this on podcast platforms as well for you to just catch it on the go and listen to it while you're out for a walk or a run or in the car. So we have that available both YouTube and on the different platforms for podcasts. And if you're looking to grow your brand and build as an author and improve the business side, I'll encourage you to purchase my best-selling resource, the Children's Author Toolbox. You can find that on Amazon. I'll have the link for that down in the show notes. Please go check out that resource. Let it be a great asset to you. I believe it's a great resource that every children's author needs to have on their desk. So many great insights, especially when it comes to things like school visits and such. So go check it out. Well, until next time, keep writing, keep dreaming, and remember, your words matter.